Hey you guys, how you doing? Let's do it to it. Let me get a sip and we'll get started. Okay. Alrighty. Let's pull up a study board. My studies. Hashtag's first steps. Let me see. Queen G4. Queen G4. I'm gonna get rid of this. Boom. Let's do that. Perfect. So white is Karyakin, Sergey, and his opponent is Vala Joe Pons. So, alright. Somehow that, I don't know how that happened, that was odd. So I have to turn the board. So, Karyakin's white, and I think a young prodigy is black. Okay, knight c3 here. So pawn push there and there. That should do it. Yep. That sets up for the mainline linear. Bishop takes, pawn takes. Because remember, it fractures the queen side. Then queen. Knight e2, and then queen g4. Such lines are part of some players' genetic code. That's what he says. Like some. So, like there's some people that like a lot of sugar, he says. So same thing with if some attacking, some players are known for attacking, some players are known for positional, some players are defenders, and some are just balanced. Here, there. 1 second. I need to get a drink again. So black castled. Chess is a strange place where opponents' evaluation of a single position may both be correct. It happens to believe that black's resources are fully adequate here, and now he can get a taste of the phase of castling. And so part of the equation should come to pass will be checkmate if we don't know what we are doing in this line as black. So now he's coming in like this. Knight BC. So you just gotta develop. F5 is also a playable line. That's what the author said. you can play f5. Queen h5 is an exclam move by Karyakin. White is fully intending to mobilize and threaten mate. This may be White's most dangerous line. If Karyakin had played knight f3, f5, e takes f, rook takes f, bishop g5, and rook f7, with multiple chances, and black scores over 50% from this point. So 50%. If he had tried bishop g5 to pin the knight and stop some of this from happening, and he's also threatening to play f6 here. a5 unpins and threatens to pick up a piece. 92, g6, knight g6, castles by black, and then a4 stops the pawn, and c5 to boot with the infiltration on there. Also, knight takes, or c takes, e5 would be an exclam setup too here. So knight g6 is forced. A pawn move would weaken black's kingside. Black is perfectly aware of his opponent's maneuvering, basically, yet has faith in his inherent defensive resources. The idea is bit here, and then h5, and then g5, and then this here, and knight smacks off a pawn at this point. So black plays queen c7, exclam. This move here is a wonderful move, because the idea for white is to play his knight in, cause black to provoke a weakness, but via h6. But now, if white tries to take, then the queen can actually come over and grab, and then be threatening check right alongside with that. It's beautiful. Remember this trick, which tactically covers against g5 and the f5 position. F takes, g takes f7. That's what I mean. So e3, g5 isn't all that effective. Black can play, so if he plays g5 now, h6 is actually at this point an exclam move, because it shuts everything down. And walking into white's trap, which if now takes here, queen takes, g takes, takes, bishop takes, c takes d, c takes d, c takes d, and black's superior structure counterbalances white's bishop pair. This gets an exclam mark. And they're saying after this move here, this is actually a blunder. Loses the king to d1. Rook f7. Bishop takes h6, and white's position, black's position falls apart here. So c4 here. He forces the, well, I guess he doesn't, Karyakin doesn't have to trade, he can just retreat his bishop back. This move is, it freezes the queenside structure for both sides at this point, c5 does. Queen takes, surprisingly this is a exclam move. The meek e2 is actually a dubious move here. It's too meek. And then f6 scores well for black at this point. Takes, and then queen g4, queen f7. Such positions confound those who seek to assert the truth of the position. We reach another important linear position where the bishop of opposite colors play a key role in the player's basically decision because of this here. This bishop's a bad bishop and this bishop's a bad bishop. It's kind of really weird. So they have dueling bad bishops, if you want to think about it. And who wants a bad bishop, right? Knight g5. The knight roams is roaming like a the knight is actually coming into g5, basically poking its head around, trying to attack positions and take advantage of the weaknesses. So white, so black plays the interesting move queen to e8, which is surprisingly an exclam move because if you want to think about it, hold on. This this position here, if you were thinking about playing this is actually a dubious move because it loses time. The queen retreats back to e2, rook e8, h4, h6, g4. In the database, black scores 0% from this position, which I'm guessing is the norm for this position. So what white plays here is actually h4, preparing to open the h file. Knight e7 is now the knight can actually roam in and potentially go after here. A4 was actually played by Karyakin. An interesting move. If h6, this is actually from one of the author's games. King h3, I mean knight h3. d6. I mean d7, sorry. Knight f4. Knight e3 there. The knight takes, he walks into a pin, so the knight can't take. Rook h3, queen f7, king d2, king d2, king h7, bishop e2, I mean queen e2, not bishop, b5, g4, a5. So trying to start some counterplay. Rook b1, rook ab1 to hold this together. G3 to get ready to push. King g8, rook f3, queen e8, and then h5, which is a kind of a dubious move. Because black can actually lock down the position with an exclam here. G5. Then the knight has to come back. Knight c6. And now black's going to start playing on the queen side. Rook takes, queen takes, and rook to a1 to actually hold this pawn now. And then b4, and now who's the one with the play? I think we see now it's black who actually has the play, because once this opens up and then the rook comes in, it's going to be black with counter chances, not white anymore. So Karyakin played a4 instead. I think this pawn sacrifice is even though it was a, let's see, Komodo's top choice, white gives up a pawn to transfer his bishop to the powerful a3 square, but I don't see. Oh, I get it. This is what he's talking about. Okay, hold on. Let me see here. What am I missing? Oh, h5. Gotcha. My bad. H5 is, I couldn't see it was over in the corner. Sometimes it gets there, then like h6, knight f5, and then g5. And when black stands better here, so a4, a5, fixing the a4 as a target to later take a poke at with the bishop and queen. Queen e2, bishop d7, double attack, boom. G4, rook a6. This frees up the bishop, and so that the bishop can actually frees up the bishop of the of its protective duty of e6. C1. Kerplunk. That pawn falls. A3. H6 to kick the knight out. H8, H4, I mean H3. B4. Bishop C5. Rook C6. So if there was a way we somehow could, I'm trying to figure out if we can get a knight here, that'd be great. We can win a pawn. Bishop d6, rook f7 to get out of the pin. So now the knight can actually move. And then h5, exclame. G takes, H, and then G5, another exclam. He's trying to blast the king side open, Karyakinis. The line opening, punching pawn sacrifice of h5, g takes, and then g5 is thematic to this type of setup. Knight f5. G takes h. Knight takes h. And then king d2. Karyakin made a mistake here. So precise so far. He should have actually played queen takes, rook f8, queen takes queen, rook takes of course, and now king d2 has more of an idea that this bishop, the light square bishop's out of play, white's bishop's in play. It's kind of like a mash of a position. But I think Karyaka was too early with the king move. So rook to f5, h g1. This is so that we can get this pawn push. See, it sets up so that the queen will be protecting the bishop, and we can break and get the bishop back in the fight. It connects these 2 points up again. There we go. A3. Because see, this is pinned here, so he can actually pick this piece up. That's why the knight has to play f7, bishop c5. Hey, how you doing? Rook b7. and then rook g2. b5 was actually a dubious move at this point. I believe he probably should have brought his somehow maybe taken and maybe set up in there, but I'm not sure if that actually even works. Maybe breaking even harder. Maybe going b3 might have been a good move too, but that does weaken this pawn. Well, no, that would unbalance and get a pawn there. Let's see what they said about that. So b3. Oh, it was right. We were right. This is that was an exclam move. b3 was an exclam move. This is winning. That was winning chances, because if the pawn takes, the rook can actually take, and at this point, this becomes a soft spot. So the rook would take here, and then come right in here with check. So we were right on that. That is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Rook a g1 is doubling up on the g pawn. B takes, C check. Was that as a mistake here? Failure can be a hair's breadth from a moment away. One move can cause a failure. Where it comes to nearly a mess, we all love to basically go for the attack. Hey, how you doing? Since it is hard to blame ourselves for our past move sequences, he says, when we believe that the move actually delivers something. This move here doesn't help the black at all. It actually exiles and helps white to hold, basically. It's like, what? No, the correct move sequence would have been to have played knight takes e5 and try with taking. The idea is to actually take when he takes here, and then now b takes makes more sense, because you now have the mobilized pawn chain that could actually do more damage. King e2, because he can't take. And then queen to b2, and now we have our own threat coming. King f2, queen takes, check. King g3, queen d3. Now look at this pawn chain. Knight f4, queen takes e3, bishop takes e3, and b here. And this actually is even though we're down a piece, we have 4 passed pawns, with way too many passed pawns for the piece. This is actually crushing at this point. He didn't wait, and the opponent didn't see, Karaka's opponent didn't see that taking here is actually winning. This is actually the win. Kuryakin actually missed his opportunity, and Kerplunk came smashing in. Finally, Black woke up to the this tactical idea, and Kung Pao he set it into motion. Now, but Karyakin's not over yet. He plays an exclam move as well. You know what? He didn't get to become the world's best because he didn't see counter punches. And this is a counter punch because you got three pieces eyeballing G7 here. You have three pieces. So you have this, 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 and it's all eyeballing G7. So the oops, let me make sure I still have that. Yep, perfect. The lines are still there. Queen takes the pawn, so Karyakin won a pawn. Queen takes c4, knight g4 to block this up. Knight g5. He played this move, which I have no idea. That's a losing move. I have no idea why. That doesn't even make sense. Knight C. He played this and knight C8 exclam, and his opponent resigned. There has to be a better move. It doesn't talk about the better move. I'm trying to figure out what could Karyakin actually do. Maybe not. No, I'm not Karyakin, but his opponent. Maybe. So there's a pin there. I was looking at this, but then pawn takes. If knight takes here, then here, then there, then there, then king here. So king here. So I'm thinking this might have been a much better move. Yep, this was it. Queen takes queen takes c5. If queen takes rook, check. Queen takes there. pawn takes, then check. And I think we still get an equal position after that move. And if he comes over here, we still get an equal position after here. Then when he moves, he can actually take and threaten mate, so he can't actually move via there. He'd have to walk right back onto, oops, I gotta turn the board. So he can't do that move. Surprisingly, he'd have to walk right back into an attack, and then now we come in here. So I'm thinking, how did a grandmaster though miss this move here though? I want to see if I'm on the right track. I believe that this move here is actually winning. That move wins. Maybe I'm missing something. Oh, I know what I was missing. If I take here, he could do a check here. Oh no, they can't check there because of the bishop. Okay, so that loses then. So queen takes is actually losing. So they wanted, okay, they wanted the retreating move back. So takes, and then bishop takes, pawn takes. Bishop in here. Huh. Interesting. We'll set up another one. d4, oops, e4, e6, d4, d5, knight f3, right there, right here, and then b6. This is Kasparov, Garry Kasparov's white, and Ivacek is black. The more strategic route, black avoids the heavy theoretical stemmings from c5. And now the familiar idea of playing a6 and swapping white's powerful light squared bishop instead of knight e7 is in play here, because then you could actually in theory play this move, knight e7, a3, bishop takes, pawn takes, b6, queen g4, knight g6, h4, h5, queen g3, knight e6 to trade off the bishop pair, takes, and then takes, knight e2, queen d7, and then a4 with a sharp unbalanced position. Next we're going to look at if queen d7 here, then you have the next game is going to look at queen d7. And so b6, a3. They're saying that potentially a4 here might have been a more advantageous setup here. But knight c6 is an exclam move right back, taking advantage of the weakness, the weakening pawn. So bishop b4 or b5, bishop b7, knight f3 is coming, and a6, e2, bishop e2, queen c7. Now black could actually castle queenside if black wanted to. Castles, and then potentially this could actually happen too. So bishop f8, it looks kind of, this movie says, looks kind of odd on the surface. This may look like an insane loss of time for black, but not at all. Ideas need to be unaddressed, basically. As a math theorem, it's also possible for things to by itself while simultaneously making some other moves. So potentially the idea is actually to trade off the bishop, right? So this saves our good bishop and trades off white's good bishop for our bad bishop. That's the same. And black principle of moving the same piece twice in the opening and undeveloping it to a square of its original square, basically. Yet, despite the appearance of the position, it is perfectly playable based on the principle in a closed position, where slow development does come to pass. They're saying that also taking here was playable, and then bishop d7, queen d7, queen g4, and then f5 at this point, which is a playable move sequence. But this keeps the ideas of this bishop maneuver and keeping our good bishop in play. This is one of the ideas. So white just develops knight f3. Bishop d3 is a loss of tempo. it'd be a loss of tempo. Black, and which would play into black's hand of bishop a6. So black plays here, knight e7, h4, Harry. We talked about this push the h pawn in the earlier game in the chapter as a typical way for white to increase his expansion. h6 and then h5. a5, pawn a5, and then bishop to b5 check. White often dodges black's bishop a6 idea with check, because it's not a good move, let's just say, on black's part. Black wants to actually play here, so white tries to do a dodgy position. c6, a4, knight d7, knight e2. Multi-purpose move. White prefers to swing the knight over to the king side in preparation for an attack. White plans to play c3 and bishop c2 to bring the light square bishop back into play. So b5, bishop b3, c5, c3, knight c6, castle kingside, queen c7, and then rook e1 to cover this pawn. c4, black's queenside initiative and space counter attacks white's on the white side of the board. So bishop c2, get it c2 like what we talked about. Knight b6, f4, oops, not e, bishop f4, overprotecting the e5 pawn. Black has no intention of activating white by playing f6. Black doesn't want to activate the bishop. So bishop e7, bishop g3 to keep the pin, and then rook b8, preparing for this break, preparing for b4, knight h2, and then queen d8. He doesn't want any sacrifices to come to pass. So g4, and then kaboom, b4. He takes, and then c takes b4. Kasparov, hoping to eliminate all his potential weakness, queenside pawns, violates the principle of basically its opponent's strong wing, and looks for a balance attack with f4. He should be looking for, rather than taking here, he should be looking for f4 and trying to the side that Kasparov's the strongest on, trying to blast that open. That would be something to be looking for, not taking and playing into your opponent's hand. Knight takes b4, bishop e1, and then bishop d7, and b3 here. The same principle is violated twice. Rook a8, rook takes a8, queen takes a8, b takes c, c takes, knight takes c4, and then rook c1, which is a mistake here. Planning. White's last move allows black to win the d-pawn. How do you think it allows white to win black to win the d-pawn? I'll give it to you. I'll give you an opportunity to find this. Black to move, win the d-pawn. D-pawn for black. So what do you think the move is? I'll give you an opportunity to take a look at it. I'll give you a second to look at it. I'll be right back. I'm gonna get a sip right here. I'll be right back. Black to move, win the d-pawn. So your plan is to play Queen A1. Think about this. What's the only piece that's guarding it? Think of what's the only piece that's guarding it. What's the only piece guarding this pawn here? That pawn there, sorry. What's the only piece that's guarding it? The queen, right. So then, how do you remove the queen? So what would be the correct move here? Boom, baby, you got it. Boom. And that's an exclam move. Because if the queen comes here, then it gets captured by the knight. If the queen comes here, it gets captured by the knight. So the queen actually has to run away. Queen E2 is forced when we have but one forcing move. We eliminate that at hand. If he plays B3 here, he walks into a decisive pin. This knight is in a decisive pin at this point. And all you have to do is take advantage of it via knight A5, and you're all operation go. And I mean knight B3, knight A5. Yep, knight A5. I don't think that, let me see here. I think the reason that doesn't work, 360, is that queen to B3 actually forks both knights. What the heck is going on here? The queen forks both knights at this point. So if you play knight to knight B2, queen to B3 actually forks these two knights, and it's game, set, and match at that point. So that's why this really is the only move that wins on the spot. So queen A7, queen A7 exclam goes after the pawn. First of all, remove the queen and then attack the D4 pawn. Attacking the D4 pawn, step 2, which can no longer be protected. It's that simple, and the planning required for Ivacek's idea doesn't basically come around the D pawn. It just all of a sudden, sometimes plans will actually be given to us. Our opponents will make a mistake, and the plan will just be there for us to like contracts. In a contract, sometimes it just is there. Or any business plan or something like that. a deal. Sometimes you get one of those deals every once in a while that is, like I like to say, dropped on your desk and you get to sign it, and it's a really good deal. So 93, let me see here. Oh, 93, gotcha. That attacks the knight. So we come in. Now I have a check, got a pawn. The rich get richer, and this says, and the poor dine on macaroni and cheese. This is what the author says. That's because Ivacek's queen gobbled another, as I like to say, deal on the board. The queen got another pawn. Knight takes c4. D takes. Queen f1. And then black castle king sides. And believe it or not, I believe, I don't know if this is a player or not. His name is George Bernard Shaw, who theoreticalized that the lack of money is the root of all evil. That's funny. That was what he did. This is what the author says. So that's kind of the interesting thing, is that's what some said. Well, there's some that say that the love of money is the root of all evil. I don't know. So I think there's a little bit of, I think what the author's trying to say there is that sometimes you can actually, like Jeremy Silman talked about, there's greed that you can take on the board. Like Ivacek won the game based on the greed of winning a pawn. And so white is down a pawn, and his pieces are driven to uncharacteristic passivity. So Kasparov feeling it's a bit a waste of energy to pursue anymore, and challenging Ivacek, basically just resigned. Did you know that this was the only game Kasparov lost with white pieces in a 10-year period? This is the only game here that Kasparov lost in a 10-year period with white pieces. This line back here, what it's all based on is, let me see, where is that? Hold on. Bishop f8. Let me see here. Right here. This is a very playable for black. The move is openly, goes against principle. And though not an everyday line that you're going to see, so you might be able to drop this type of a move on your opponent's position. Sometimes you can switch it up and play that move, and your opponent would be like, whoa, I haven't seen this one before. This is something altogether different. And then maybe you can pull a win, or even if it's a draw, it'd be a fun game to play. So would you like to do puzzles, or would you like to go into endgame and then do puzzles? Would you like to do endgame, or would you like to do some puzzles? Like 6 puzzles, then an endgame, or would you like to do endgame and then 12 puzzles? Because we can do 6 puzzles, an endgame, and then 6 more puzzles, or we can just do all 12 puzzles and then do endgame. Alright. And we get to use Magnus Carlsen's endgame, so we're learning from the world champion. Let's do it to it. So let's get dangerous from Darkwing Duck. We're gonna get, let's get learning. That's chess. That's a chess cruncher. Let's clear the board. Let's get the white pawn structure set up. There we go. Now we'll get the bishops. A knight, two rooks, a king, two knights. Oops, there, queen, two rooks. Let's make sure we have this one right here. Okay, perfect. Perfect. Oops, black needs a queen. Hold on, just one minute. I'll tell you, just 1 second. Just want to make sure I got this. Yep. It's black to move, so it must be put it into a study. Endgame. Magnus is black, but his opponent is okay. Magnus played the powerful knight e5 here, which is an interesting attack. The bishop here increased with less material is on the board. The bishop pairs do. So his opponent took the knight, and the queen took. So now the pawn is going to be under heavy pressure. This pawn will be under heavy pressure. And so f3. And then Magnus is just going to blast it and create blast the EA file open, E4 file. It's the characteristic of a young Carlsen that he does not spend much time improving his position, but strikes out at once. He could have, they're saying, played rook f d8, also would have brought about an exclam mark. So this is an exclam, d5 is an exclam mark as well. So they both get exclams. One's just building up, and the other one is going for the berserking attack. He takes d, and then rook f d8. Now that's the queen's pinned. So f4, queen takes d5. In chess, principles can clash. Here, the queen exchange eases white's position, as his king will be safe without queens on the board. After rook takes d5, oops. After rook takes d5, queen e1, queen c7, and then bishop f3. Rook d7, bishop takes, b7, and queen takes b7. I think black would have been slightly better than in the game, because black would have maintained his domination over the d file. In addition, the white king can easily become a target along this diagonal here with checks and stuff. So takes, queen takes, bishop takes. But remember, the more pieces that come off the board, the bishop pair gets stronger. So that's kind of, I think, young Magnus's intention. So take, and then rook takes, and then rook d2, and this takes over the second. This takes over the second rank. The rook stands extremely strong on the second rank. b4, and then a5. He's trying to also, that's an interesting move, because it's a majority attack, a minority attack versus a majority attack. Carlsen acts at once. He wins a pawn, but allows his opponent to exchange all the queenside pawns. So what you could actually play queen rook c8 if you wanted to, very strong. If a4, then b takes, a4, rook f2, and then d3, rook d3. White would also be in trouble if a d8 too. This also puts him into a potential bind here, because now he has to defend the knight. So this is also a good move. Knight f2 would be played, and then f5 to get our attack going. The bishop can actually come and start doing a little bit of an attack there. So a5, b takes a, rook takes a, king f1, a takes a2, rook takes a2, Rook takes a2. Carlsen is relying on his extra pawn, although the win is not at all simple on the queen side. The pawns will likely be exchanged. On the other hand, the placement of white's f4 pawn makes the defensive material harder. So this will make it harder for white to defend his d4 pawn. So rook f2. He doesn't want to exchange because that would end up in a draw. So he sees a target, the f4 pawn, like what we talked about. So the rook was able to take scope on that. g3. Now all of white's pawns are on dark squares, so that favors our bishop. g6. Now all of our pieces are on light squares, all the pawns are on light squares, which gives our bishop a boatload of mobilizing. So he pushes. Sorry, not g6. b4. C takes b4, and then bishop takes b4 exclam. If the rooks are exchanged, black is unlikely to win. So knight f. How in the world? What? Oh. Hold on, let me go back really quick. a4. So we gotta ditch this, ditch this, ditch this. b2. And then there we go. Now he takes, and now this is the exclam. I missed a move sequence. Knight f2. Bishop c3. Right there, bishop c3. Rook e2. Bishop f6. Knight d3. Which is, I don't understand this move. It doesn't really have any points. g2, king g2 is an interesting move. That has more, oops, wrong one. That has more ideas behind it. Was better because white has time to decide where to put his knight. I think it is best to put the knight on e4 and advance his h4 pawn. I believe white would hold at that point, but he didn't have to move this. He had time to move his king first. h6. The the immediate g5 would have given more practical chances. So this g5 move, if takes and then takes, would have given a pass pawn to Magnus. King g2. At this point, white needs to get his pieces mobilized. h4, rook a3, d2, bishop c3, bishop c2 there, king g7, king g2, king f6, mobilizing the king, king e2, king f5, knight e5, bishop takes, and f takes. I believe white would survive this rook endgame. This would actually be he could survive it. But king g2, king g7. It seems better to hurry the advance of the g pawn. So g5 right here at this moment would actually have been an exclam move, because remember, we're trying our all in all to create a pass pawn, and if pawn takes and then takes, we have created a passed e5 pawn. The king can get involved in the rook's optimally placed. So knight c5, d4, rook d4, knight e4, and then bishop e7, king f3. I believe that after h4 white would hold. So after h4 here, there's no way to for g5 to be playable. So Magnus would have lost his advantage and it would have went to a draw at that point. Now g5 is a playable move. This does get an exclam. After this, white's position already looks uncomfortable. White either undertakes weakening of his position via f4, or he takes on g5 and makes a passed e, and then eventually a passed f pawn as well. So king e3, rook a4, f5, hold on, let me make sure f3, f5, that's where that comes in, right there. Rook a3, king g2, king f6, knight h3, and rook e2 for Magnus. Magnus wants to attack the f4 pawn in such a way that it can't be defended by the knight after d3, bishop d3. Then c5 could actually be played here, and we're right as rain. F takes, g5 check, and then h takes g5. But this is also a line. White's position would also be difficult after the defending move of f2, rook d4, king f3, bishop d6, queen e3, c5, king f3, f takes g, g takes f, bishop d6, and then knight h3. White's position is very difficult, although not hopeless. Black's winning chances have increased due to the newly created pass pawn, and has increased his space advantage as well. Knight takes g5 was a mistake here. he sacrifices knights for 2 pawns in hope that it will be able to exchange the remaining one. I think g4 is saying he thinks that g4 was actually a better R. Knight f2 would have been a better move, get a better chance of holding. King takes, rook takes, bishop f6, and then e2. Not e8, e2. King g4. Carlsen wants to provoke h on the h pawn to move. Rook f c2, h3, king g5, king f2, d4, king g2, rook e3, and black wins easy after the exchange because he can't trade these off. The pawn will just push. So bishop c3 exclam. Magnus correctly asserts that the rook exchange favors him. Rook f2, rook d2, exclam at this point. h3, king g5, rook takes d2, bishop takes d2, and king f3. But okay, at this point here, h3 didn't have to be played. He could have taken here, king takes, bishop takes, king f2, king h3, king f, and then bishop g5. And black wins easy at this point. That g5, bishop g5 is actually an exclam move because this pawn covers here, here, and the bishop covers there. So there's no infiltration point that could actually come to pass at this moment. c1. Bishop c1. Holding his move in high regard, the position is easily won because black can put white into Zugzwang with his king. So king e2, bishop b2, king f2, bishop b5, king f3, bishop d6, king g2, king f6, king f2, king e5, king f3, bishop f8, so king e3, h6 check, king f3, and then king g5. White is in Zook swamp now, so h4, bishop h6, g4, f4, g5, g7, h5, king f5, h5, h6, king e5, and white resigns. White's playing pressures his opponents. Carlsen did not always find the strongest move. However, once the pawns were reduced to one side, he played very well and was able to record a win. This is Agamemnon's comment on this game. This endgame technique, his endgame technique still needed some work, but in this game he showed his ability there as well. So he had a good ability for spotting the techniques that needed to be there. Gotta erase this, and then we'll do some puzzles. Let me show you. Perfect. White to move, mate 2. It's puzzle time. He can actually go to E. He can go to E3 at that point. I think it has something to do with Queen C5, pawn takes, and then Rook D8 is mate. It's this here, because this takes. Same thing, mate in 2 by white. Okay. What's the other move after this? Yep. Bishop takes, then there's mate. If knight blocks, then there's mate. And if king b4, then queen c5 is mate. There's actually 3 different mates in that one. You gotta love it when there's a multitude of mates there. Let's get this a moving and a grooving. There we go. No, those are from Larsen Pogar, the father to the Pogar sisters. He came out with a puzzle book that has 5,334 problems in them. Queen takes there, and then knight d7 mate. Right, but you know what? You're building your tactical recognition. So I believe that's the correct setup. Yep. Let's see if you can find this move here. Yep, got it. Kaboom. The other moves don't work. If you were thinking something like this here, well, maybe it does still. Nope, it doesn't work because the knight can actually grab the rook. So that's the only move that works, is the queen exchange and then there. sure. Let's see. Okay. There you go. There you go. I got it. So if you need a hint, tell me. But I think you'll solve this one. Yep, there you go. There we go. So I'm running upward to the next one. Oops, hold on. Sit there. That's good. Yep, you got it. It is a funny puzzle. But the interesting thing is those scenarios do happen in a lot of games. So mate two. Pawn takes, that's mate. Queen blocks, that's mate. There you go. Because this, if you're thinking this doesn't, well, it does work, but it's a mate 3. And if knight takes, then that's actually the best move, so you lose. So the only one is to actually sacrifice the queen, play there, and win. Yep. 2 more. I think this is right. Queen takes, king takes, turn to a knight. There you go. One more, and then I gotta log. One more, one more time. Let me make sure I got that. Yep. So there, and there. Oops, right there. There's your mate. Okay, do you have any questions before I log off? Okay. I want to thank you for all logging on. And you know what? Sometimes I get allergies, so that could just be what that is. But every long journey begins with one small step. What we have to remember is that, you know what? Our journey doesn't end and finish, it's just a beginning. And as long as you have the Lord Jesus in your heart, it's never an end. It's just He gets to direct you, and you get to continue further down the road that He directs you, and He also will give you a talent, and if you use the talent, to honor whatever field you're in, and also Him as well, the blessings do come. Sometimes they're not as quick as we want them to be, but it's just how it is, and that's the one thing that I've learned from life, is that you can't get everything you want. It's that old phrase, have your cake and I think it's something, have your bread and cake and eat it too, or something like that. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's all about that. You have to continue to keep, though, pushing forward, and that's the whole idea, that we make sure that we not in chess. In chess, see, we have pieces, and sometimes we've learned from our end games and our French defenses. What I meant by that was that a king can be an attacking piece, but if you overextend it, then you'll actually get into a checkmating position. I had a game where my opponent actually gobbled a pawn, and that's that old saying that you can't have everything you want. You can't get a pawn and then expect not to get checkmated when the entire army's all around you. And that's the whole basis, even in your opening and middle game, that you don't get your queen, because a lot of players go pawn grabbing, and that's what happens. That's why what we're studying is the Winier and the poison pawn variation, and that's why we need to be careful. Like when you castle, we are going over the castling line right now, and it's a defensive line. If you like to defend, that's playable. But remember that you can't have everything in a position. You got to make sure, if you're an attacker, you're going to want to keep your king in the center a little bit more in the French defense. And then at the right moment, maybe being able to switch from the king side to the queen side. What that means is castling queen side is a playable idea. Just some ideas that I learned from the author that through the book. I just wanted to share a little bit of that. I know that's a little extra right now, but you know what? It's imperative that you study your games, because that's how you improve. And sometimes the hardest thing to do is swallow the pride of a player, when the more you actually improve is actually from your losses, surprisingly, because you get to find out where you went awry, or your position might have it could just be a pawn move in the endgame. But just remember that, don't get too pawn greedy, because that could be the end of your position. And make sure your plans always work. Don't just go into position blindly. And what you have to keep in mind also, like what Bruce Lee said, was that you have to always take what you know and apply it. That goes to the position at hand. Don't, if you're not sure what's going on, don't just guess and move. They call, I think it was Dan. I think it's Dan Heisman. No, I may be wrong. There's something called hope chess, and you don't want to play hope chess. What that is, you hope this move works, or your opponent doesn't find your weakness. So have a plan and basically direct it. That's what the majority of, like Magnus is, even at a young age, he had a plan in his end games. They were, because he was young and still improving, he was an attacker. Now he's more of a balanced, strong player, and he can go from defense to attack to just basically positional. He can do it all, and that's what a chess player needs to do. Let me see. Also, you know what? Don't forget, never give up, but keep pushing forward and try your best, even in chess. Sometimes you'll even maybe be down in exchange, but the whole thing is, if you take it to an end game, you may be able to draw the position, because that's why we study the opening, the end game, and then we do some puzzles. Is we're trying to get all areas of chess. Basically, we're trying to get a full, as they say in a workout, you want to get a full body workout. In chess, we want to get a full board workout of the opening, middle game, and end game, because that's the only way you're going to get stronger. If you know that you have a problem in your middle game, then get a book on the middle game and work on that. If you have a problem in your end game, more the merrier. Get a book on the end game, even if you don't like the end game. There are three parts in chess. And that's that old phrase of, you know what, you gotta remember, you can't have everything. You can't always win a game in the middle game, because when you get into the higher levels, they're going to push you either into an opening. I mean, they're going to take you out of the opening and put you into a middle game or an end game. And a lot of the Grandmaster games that I've noticed have gone to end games. So it's, if you want to like cross from what a lot of I've read from authors from 1800 into the 2000 plus category, you have to get a really strong patterned endgame, and that's why we're going over those books. And what we have to remember is, you know what, the opponents you play, don't fear that a lot of the openings, because they can navigate, because they're very talented players, through the opening, and they may be able to even maneuver through the middle game with some scratches but not a lot of damage. But when they enter the end game and you've mastered the end game play, you'll be able to find tactical moves that either save the game or sometimes even out of a drawn position win a game. So, and it's fun when you win, but it's a great learning experience when you lose. It's not fun to lose. You know what? You have to lose though to learn sometimes, because then you find out where you're weak, and if maybe it all comes down to that you lost focus for a second, and so you need to work on your focus, something like that. And so, like Bruce Lee said, that you know what, they don't. We don't. He didn't fear the person who practiced 10,000 individual kicks. He feared the person who practiced one kick 10,000 times, and that, in my opinion, is the best in chess emphasizing of an end game. End game. That you practice 10,000 different types of end game positions, and you put them together. They all flow in from certain positions. So just keep that in mind. And you become what you think about. So remember, uh, if you're a attacking chess player, look at the attacking authors, attacking chess players. So let me see it. And like I always remember what the little engine says: if you think you can, you will. If you think you can't, you won't. Either way, you're right. So it all comes down to how much work do we want to put into it, and that's what I've kind of learned, and that's why the Chess Crunchers motto is hanging up your coat, hanging up your hat, and sitting down and studying when most won't. Chess Crunchers do, and that makes all the difference. That's why we sit down and study. We want to improve, and you know what? It's the Lord's given many players. Alekhine wasn't a gifted player, but he outworked his opponents because of his work ethic. So if you do have some talent in chess, but maybe you're not like the prodigies that are out there right now, you can make up the difference by hard work. It's just going to be a little more tougher on you, because it just comes to some players more natural. But don't feel bad. Once it clicks with you, my friends, you'll be able to be as good too, and maybe even better, because you've put in the work. You know what it takes, and you know the pain of the loss, and you've learned from all your losses. So you know what? You're a champion in my book. But okay, so we'll end with that. So as Wesley So says to the Lord Jesus, as I say, God bless, and I'll see you next time on Chess Cruncher TV. Have a blessed morning, afternoon, evening. Lord willing, I'll be back on tomorrow, and we'll keep pushing forward and going over a lot of our end games, middle games, and openings. And the reason we're going over the French is that was a new book that I got from the tournament that I purchased, and I wanted to share it with you. It's a more recent French defense book, so it's a fun book. And then I got the Endgame Magnus one. That's a fun book too that we're going over. But remember, a good move, a good plan is one that you direct your opponent where you're going, and you keep pushing. Till you get to your goal right alongside with where it's directing. And Hannibal Smith was a pro at that. He knew what his opponent, because of their propensity, he knew what they were going to do, and so he just played around that. Same thing with most chess players. If you know that chess player's an attacker, you know what? Play positional. The attackers don't like positional. Just some advice, you know what? And as always, great job. Hoorah, be blessed, and I'll see you tomorrow. Honor the Lord Jesus and keep playing chess and having fun, because that's what it's about, improving. Bye bye, and I'll see you tomorrow.